Many people wake up early every day, feeling like they're doing everything right. They leave home already tired, face traffic, pressure, demands, targets, work hard, solve other people's problems, carry the weight of routine on their backs, and at the end of the month receive a salary that on paper even seems reasonable. For a few minutes, when the money hits the account, there's even a feeling of relief. It seems like things will finally fall into place. It seems like something will finally be left over. But that feeling doesn't last long. You only need to look at the list of commitments to understand what happens. The rent is due, the electricity bill arrives, the water, internet, gas, the weekly groceries, fuel, the credit card, a piece of clothing that needed buying, an unexpected medication, a small treat on the weekend to unwind after so many heavy days. Before the person realizes it, the money that came in with so much effort has already started flowing out from all sides, like water escaping through invisible cracks. And the hardest part is that this doesn't happen once or twice. It becomes routine. It becomes a cycle. Work, receive, pay, take a deep breath, wait for the next paycheck. Work, receive, pay again. And so the months go by, then the years. The person keeps moving, keeps being tired, keeps pushing, but feels like they're going nowhere. It's like running on a treadmill. The legs keep moving, the sweat appears, the exhaustion grows, but the scenery never changes. The problem is not a lack of effort. It's not laziness either. Most of the time, the problem is that the salary comes in only to cover survival expenses and small momentary comforts, but never gets transformed into something greater. The money passes through the person's hands, but doesn't stay with them. It arrives with promise and leaves with speed. And that's where the silent trap lies that keeps so many people stuck their entire lives, believing that earning a salary is already the finish line, when in reality it should only be the starting point. Because as long as all the money is consumed just to keep the month alive, the next month will always start with the same pressure. And when that repeats for too long, financial life stops being a project and becomes just a constant attempt not to sink. This is the reality of millions of people. They don't live in absolute poverty, but they don't build freedom either. They're always in the middle of the road, always too busy to think, too tired to plan, and too squeezed to invest. And the most dangerous part is that this cycle starts to seem normal. The person gets used to surviving and begins to call it stability. But surviving is not thriving. Receiving and spending everything is not growing. Working hard and continuing to build nothing solid is, in practice, being stuck in a wheel that keeps spinning. And while most people accept this as if it were the only way to live, few realize that the real game of money begins precisely when you understand why it disappears so fast and decide it will no longer be in charge of you. The first step to breaking this cycle doesn't begin in the bank account. It begins in the mind. Because before someone changes the way they use money, they need to change the way they see money. Most people look at their salary as if it were the final reward for all their effort. They work the entire month thinking only about the day the payment will drop. When that money arrives, the mission seems accomplished, but it's precisely there that many people unknowingly stall their own growth. Those who build wealth learn to see their salary differently, not as a destination, but as a tool, not as a finishing point, but as raw material. A salary on its own rarely transforms a life. What transforms a life is what a person does with it after receiving it. That detail seems small, but it changes everything. Because when money comes in and is used only to put out fires in the present, it dies right there. But when a portion of it is set aside to build something that keeps generating returns in the future, it begins to work alongside you. That is the difference between living just to pay bills and beginning to build financial independence. The person with a common mindset thinks, I need to earn more to breathe. The person with a wealth mindset thinks, how do I make today's money help me tomorrow? Notice the shift. Instead of depending only on hours worked, they begin to seek ways to turn part of their income into something that produces cash flow down the line. It's like planting a tree instead of buying ready-made shade every day. In the beginning, this requires discipline and, most importantly, an internal shift, because the temptation to spend everything is great. The desire to reward one's own exhaustion is also real. After so many days of effort, it seems fair to use the salary to treat yourself, relieve the tension, buy something new, enjoy a small, immediate pleasure. And nobody is saying that life needs to become suffering. The point is different. If every month all the money is used only for consumption, the person will continue depending exclusively on the next paycheck. And dependency was never wealth. A wealthy mindset doesn't mean showing off. It doesn't mean pretending to have a lot. It doesn't mean wearing expensive clothes, trading in a car before it's time, or trying to appear prosperous on the outside. In fact, it's often the opposite. It's having the maturity to understand that not every incoming dollar needs to be visible to others. A person with this mindset starts asking, will what I'm about to buy put money in my pocket later or just take money out of it? That simple question separates two completely different lives over the years. When someone decides to use part of their income to buy assets, something important begins to happen. Money stops being just a passerby and starts becoming construction. An asset can be anything with the potential to generate income, appreciation, or cash flow in the future. It could be a well-chosen investment, a small stake in a business, something that grows over time and begins to yield fruit. In the beginning, these fruits seem small, almost imperceptible. But that's how every great structure begins, without noise, without applause, without a grand appearance. Imagine two people receiving the same salary. One uses everything to keep the month looking good on the outside. The other sets aside a portion, even if small, to start building something that produces a return. In the first few months, perhaps no one notices a difference. Perhaps the first one even seems to be living better, but time is a friend to those who build. After a few years, the gap between the two begins to grow enormous. One keeps trading time for money. The other starts seeing money bring results, even when they're not directly working for every cent. That's why developing a wealthy mindset is so important, because wealth doesn't come from the value of the salary alone, but from the direction that salary is given. When a person understands this, they stop treating every earning as something that needs to be consumed in the present and start treating it as a soldier with a greater mission. Each portion saved with intelligence stops being a sacrifice and becomes a seed. And those who learn to plant consistently discover sooner or later that financial freedom doesn't arise by chance. It is built one decision at a time. After shifting the mindset, a truth arrives that many people take years to accept. Working and earning money is not the same as knowing how to build wealth. A person can spend decades waking up early, keeping hours, receiving a salary, and still never actually learn how money works. And this happens because most of the time, no one teaches them. In school, almost no one learns to invest. Almost no one learns to analyze an opportunity. Almost no one learns to distinguish a cost from an asset, a tax from a strategy, a bad debt from a smart debt. People grow up knowing how to add and divide numbers, but not how to multiply wealth. That gap is costly, very costly, because those who don't understand money almost always make decisions in the dark. They buy without thinking, finance without calculating, invest without studying, trust without verifying. And when they make mistakes, they think the problem was bad luck, when in reality, it was often a lack of preparation. Financial education serves exactly this purpose, removing the blindfold, making a person stop running on autopilot and start seeing what was going unnoticed before. The great turning point comes when someone understands that learning about money is not just for bankers, big business owners, or suited-up specialists. It's for anyone who doesn't want to spend their entire life working just to sustain bills. When someone starts studying, even in a simple way, they begin to realize that the financial world has rules. And those who understand those rules better make better decisions. Not because they predict the future, but because they understand more of the game. Learning about investments, for example, changes the way a person looks at their own salary. Before, they saw money only as something to spend or save. Afterward, they begin to see money as a resource that can grow. Learning about real estate changes the way they view financing, rent, appreciation, and income. Learning about business changes the way they perceive market problems, people's needs, and opportunities hidden in ordinary things. Learning about taxes even changes the way income and expenses are organized, because they realize that earning more isn't enough. You also need to know how to better protect what you earn. And the most interesting thing is that this education doesn't need to begin in a complicated way. It doesn't require difficult language or frightening formulas. It starts with curiosity. It starts when a person decides to stop saying, "That's not for me," and starts asking, "How does this work?" A well-chosen book, a serious class, useful content, careful analysis, a conversation with someone who has already walked that path. All of this gradually forms a new foundation. Little by little, the mind changes. And when the mind changes, choices change too. Think of someone who receives their salary and, not understanding money, leaves everything sitting somewhere that earns little, or worse, uses almost all of it on things that lose value quickly. Now think of someone who started studying and can already see where there is waste, where there is a trap, and where there is opportunity. Both people might even earn the same amount per month. But over time, one continues reacting to money, the other starts commanding it. That is the power of financial education. It doesn't deliver ready-made wealth, but it delivers something even more important: direction. And direction is worth a lot, because a person without direction might walk far and still be lost. But a person with direction, even advancing slowly, begins to approach a completely different place. At the end of the day, getting rich is not only a matter of effort, it's also a matter of understanding. Those who learn better decide better. Those who decide better make fewer mistakes. Those who make fewer mistakes preserve more capital, and those who preserve and invest intelligently create conditions to truly grow. That's why studying money is not a luxury. It's protection. It's strategy. It's a quiet way to stop being a hostage to one's own lack of information and finally begin to build something solid. After understanding that the salary needs to be used intelligently and that financial education opens your eyes to better choices, a step arrives that many people avoid because it seems too simple, but has enormous power: cutting unnecessary expenses. And here is an important point. Unnecessary doesn't mean everything that brings pleasure. Unnecessary is what takes money away without leaving real value, without bringing growth, without genuinely improving life, and without building anything for the future. It's the kind of expense that seems small in the moment, but added up over months, turns into a major leak. The trap of unnecessary expenses almost never shows up looking like a problem. It shows up looking like something deserved. I worked really hard, I deserve it. It's cheap, so it's fine. It's just this once. Everyone does it. These are common, normal, even understandable phrases. The problem is that money doesn't disappear only in big mistakes. Most of the time it leaves through small, repeated decisions. A subscription that's barely used, an impulse order, a purchase made more from emotion than necessity, a consumption habit that seems harmless but silently nibbles at the salary week after week. This is where many people fool themselves. The person looks at their own budget and thinks nothing is left over because they don't earn enough. In some cases, that really does weigh heavily. But in many others, what exists is not just a lack of income. There is also an excess of financial distraction. Money comes in, but gets pulled in several directions at once. An app here, a promotion there, an installment plan around the corner, a small expense that doesn't seem threatening on its own. But when it all adds up, the result is heavy. What seemed like a detail becomes a setback. What seemed harmless becomes an obstacle. What seemed like comfort becomes a trap. Cutting unnecessary expenses is not living badly. It's not turning the home into a joyless place. It's not starting to count every coin in fear of everything. It's making a more mature separation between what sustains your life and what only feeds the impulse of the moment. It's starting to ask honestly, does this really have value for me, or is it just giving me a quick sensation? Because many people confuse consumption with reward, when in reality, they're just buying temporary relief with money that could be building freedom. Think about how many times someone pushes through an entire month, but when the salary arrives, starts spending to feel better. Not because they are irresponsible, but because they are tired, pressured, emotionally drained. Buying becomes a short rest, an escape, a prize, and for a few hours it even seems to work. But then the bill comes back, and when it comes back, it brings along the same reality as before. Little money left over, no real progress, and the feeling that the entire month was consumed without laying any foundation for the next step. That's why this strategy is so powerful. When a person cuts what adds no real value, they are not just saving money, they are reclaiming control. They are creating space. They are opening a passage where everything was previously clogged. Each eliminated unnecessary expense becomes a bit of breathing room. And that breathing room can be transformed into investment, reserves, opportunity, or assets. Instead of money trickling away through habits that build nothing, it begins to be redirected towards something that strengthens financial life. And this process also teaches an important lesson about maturity, because the financially strong adult is not the one who can buy everything they see. It's the one who can choose. It's the one who can say no to what weakens tomorrow, even when today's desire seems convincing. That strength doesn't draw much attention on the outside, but completely changes reality on the inside. Those who learn to control impulse learn to protect their own future. Over time, this change stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like intelligence. The person begins to realize that many things they used to buy weren't really that necessary. They realize that part of what they consumed was habit, not need. They realize that much of the money lost wasn't buying peace, wasn't buying progress, and wasn't buying freedom. It was only buying minutes of distraction, and when that realization hits, something powerful happens. They stop being governed by consumption and start making consumption obey what truly matters. In the end, cutting unnecessary expenses is like closing holes in a boat. While those holes remain open, no matter how hard you row, the water keeps coming in. But when you start closing them, the effort finally starts producing real movement. And then, for the first time, the salary stops being just survival and starts becoming a tool for building. After cutting the excess and creating space within the budget, the question that truly separates those who merely save money from those who begin to build wealth arises. What do you do with that money now? Many people believe it's enough to leave the amount sitting somewhere safe and wait. And while saving is better than spending everything, there is an enormous difference between protecting money and making money grow. When it sits completely still for too long, it doesn't keep up with the size of your dreams, or the cost of living, or the passing of time. It stays quiet while the world moves on. That's why this stage is so important. Money needs to start working. Just as a person spends all day pushing hard to earn, ideally, a portion of that value should also be set in motion, in productive assets, in opportunities that have the potential to grow over time. Because wealth doesn't come from the habit of saving alone. It comes from the combination of saving, directing well, and having the patience to let the process mature. Here is a very common mistake. A person spends years believing that safety only exists in leaving everything in the most stationary place possible, even if it barely advances. This gives an immediate sense of tranquility, but often delivers little result in the long run. Those who begin to understand the power of investments realize that money can have a greater function. It can participate in something that produces. It can be linked to real estate, stocks, funds, or even a well-thought-out side business. It can be in structures that generate income, appreciation, or progressive growth, and that detail changes the entire logic of financial life. Think of it this way. When you leave your entire future depending solely on your next paycheck, you alone carry the full weight of the construction. But when you start investing in productive assets, you begin to create financial helpers. Small, silent workers who, over time, begin to collaborate with you. In the beginning, that help seems almost invisible. The progress is discreet. The numbers seem slow. And precisely because of this, many people give up too early. They want to see giant results in a short time, and since they don't, abandon the strategy. But wealth rarely grows at the pace of anxiety. It tends to grow at the pace of consistency. This is where two words that many people underestimate come in: diversification and patience. Diversification, because putting everything in one place increases risk far too much. It's like supporting an entire house on a single column. If that column fails, everything shakes. But when a person better distributes their resources, they reduce vulnerability and build a stronger foundation. And patience, because serious investments don't usually reward those who chase excitement. They tend to favor those who understand that building wealth is a game of time, not hurry. It's also important to understand that making money grow doesn't mean going out and putting resources into anything that seems promising. It's not about acting out of excitement or following trends or copying decisions without studying them. Growing with intelligence is different from betting in the dark. The logic here is to use money with purpose, seeking productive assets that make sense within the person's reality and the plan they want to build. Because true progress is not about seeming bold, but about being strategic. When someone starts investing consistently, even in modest amounts at first, something very important changes within them. The salary stops being seen only as the fuel for the month and starts being seen as raw material for a wealth base. The person realizes that part of what they receive can be sent to a place where the future is being quietly assembled. And that realization gives strength because it shows that today's effort is not disappearing entirely. A part of it is staying. A part of it is growing. A part of it is being transformed into something more solid than simple consumption. At its core, this strategy teaches a powerful lesson. Money sitting still depends on you. Money well invested begins, little by little, to collaborate with your journey. And when that happens, financial life begins to change levels, not in a magical way, nor immediately, but in a real way, like a seed that doesn't explode overnight, but which, tended with discipline, takes root, gains strength, and one day offers shade, fruit, and stability. That's how money truly grows, with direction, with prudence, and with time. In the end, building wealth was never about chasing a miracle. It was never about hitting one perfect opportunity, getting lucky, or finding a secret shortcut that fixes everything at once. The real transformation happens in a much quieter and far more powerful way. It is born when a person decides to stop living only to pay for the present and finally begins to build their own future. This is where many people get lost because they look at wealth as if it were too distant, reserved only for those who were born with advantages, made a lot of money quickly, or had extraordinary opportunities. But the truth is that most of the time, the change begins with simple choices, repeated seriously. It begins when someone starts looking at their salary with different eyes, when they decide to learn more, when they cut waste, when they invest with discipline, when they protect what they earn, when they create new sources of income, when they exchange the anxiety for immediate results for the strength of a long-term vision. Because real wealth doesn't appear overnight. It is assembled in silence, like a house built brick by brick. 1 month of discipline can seem small, an investment can seem modest, cutting an unnecessary expense can seem almost invisible. But when all of this is done consistently, what before seemed small begins to take shape, and what was once only intention becomes structure. Then it becomes stability. Then it becomes freedom. Persistence is what transforms effort into results. There will be tighter months. There will be doubts. There will be moments when the progress seems too slow. There will be temptations to abandon the plan, spend without thinking, postpone important decisions, and return to the old cycle. But it is precisely in those moments that the difference is built. Because those who persist on the right path, even without immediate applause, are doing something most people don't. They are trading short relief for lasting security. In the beginning, perhaps no one will notice the change. Perhaps on the outside, it will seem like not much has changed. But on the inside, everything is already different. The relationship with money changes, the way of thinking changes. Decisions begin to have direction, and little by little, the person stops being someone who only works to survive and begins to become someone who builds wealth, options, and peace for tomorrow. This is the great message. The salary on its own does not need to be the prison of your life. It can be the starting point. It can be the tool. It can be the foundation of something much greater, as long as it is treated with intelligence, discipline, and purpose. Because when money stops being just a passerby and starts being put to work building assets, protecting the future, and generating new possibilities, the story changes, and it changes for real. In the end, wealth does not belong only to those who earn more. It tends to draw closer to those who think better, plan better, persist more, and understand that financial freedom is a patient construction. It's not about hurry, it's about direction. It's not about appearances, it's about consistency. It's not about having everything now. It's about building step by step a life in which money works in your favor, and not one in which you spend your entire life chasing after it. And when that key turns, everything starts to make sense, because the person realizes that the goal was never just to earn money. The goal was always to earn time, peace, choice, and autonomy, and that is not conquered in a single day. It is built with the courage to begin, the discipline to continue, and the maturity not to give up along the way. And before you go, leave your like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next content. Every week, there are new messages to help you think better, act more intelligently, and build a stronger financial life with more peace and more freedom. And share this video with someone who also needs to hear this today.